Welcome to Truck Tech. I'm Thomas Watson. I'm in my own home studio today. I'm not in the big studio, but we've got news. And so news never sleeps. And I'm super excited to be talking with the folks from Harbinger. They've been extremely busy this year. I've had the pleasure of catching up with John Harris, the co-founder and CEO of Harbinger, a few times, but we've got a lot to talk about because they have made some news. One of the big ones, of course, being that they had recently completed a $160 million Series C round, and they've inked a deal with FedEx for some electric trucks. And so super excited to be welcoming John. He's actually, if you look behind, he's on the floor. They're making them as we speak. And so, John, super excited to catch up. I love your background because I'm jealous about my background. It's not as cool. I don't have as much going on here.
Thanks. Yeah, this is one of the more special things we do here. They're building complete battery systems behind me. And there's really only two truck companies in the world that do this. One is Harbinger, the other one is BYD.
And let's talk about the fabrication and stuff. One of the big things was you guys are setting up, you're ramping up. Talk about how everything's been for this year, and then we'll dive into the recent raise as well for folks who are catching up.
So we've been generally ramping up all year. We made the decision a long time ago that doing this the right way meant making everything here. We made that choice because we thought it would be the most cost effective. It's turned out that was also very, very important in the new, more complicated trade environment that we live in. So we have about 50 to 55% onshore content. And to be honest, if we hadn't had that in place, I think it would have been very, very painful to ramp up this year. But we came into the year with already a company that's mostly doing things onshore in the US. And we've just been doubling down on that all year.
And talk about some of the story here. You guys had a big presence as well. I remember seeing y'all's booth set up at ACT Expo as well. When we're looking at this recent Series C, tell us a little bit behind the scenes. For folks who aren't familiar with startups and when you have your seed, your A, B, and C, what does it mean? And talk about this milestone, putting it into context on what this future plans also entail because of it.
Well, I think this round is really about the customers have really seen the visit the product data. If you look at venture rounds, there's seed is sort of like, that's a nice idea. A is like, okay, you made one. B, I think is the product actually works. There's no more major tech risk. The Series C is really about, this is the right product in the right market at the right time, at the right price.
And that's kind of a big deal because it's like scaling. It's basically Series C is like, we know it works. We got the product. We got the fit. Now it's like, as they'd say on Wall Street Bets, the old Reddit joke, to the moon.
That's right.
So we're in the to the moon phase. Talk about with FedEx, because when I got the reporting on it, checking out the release, the timing just, half of life feels like timing. One of the big ones is FedEx wants to help not only decarbonize, switch to electric. They've got some goals to convert their fleet, and they had recently placed an order, a deal for 53 of these electric trucks as well by the end of 2025. Let's talk about that, because that's got to be a big stamp of approval as you guys are also having this huge raise.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, FedEx is such an anchor customer for commercial vehicles in the US. They got one of the biggest fleets, and that means they have some of the highest expectations when they look at vehicles. FedEx has talked about electrification, I think, for a long time. They've been very clear, where they see the fleet going. And I think that's true of a lot of our national customers. But with FedEx, the scale is so different than most fleets in the US that they really need products that are very durable, very mature, and operable at scale. So this, across all of our national accounts, it's clear that people really want electrification. But it's also very clear that it needs to come at the right price. So I think for a big account like FedEx, seeing the right product at the right price has provoked a meaningful response.
Let's talk about the price aspect a little bit. One of the big things with that is, the battery pack for the needs, the weight, all these other things. Is this one of those things where as the technology is getting better, prices going down, or is it kind of alluding to earlier? You mentioned the manufacturing processes, having a lot more in-house, more vertical integration. Talk about how you get to that like Goldilocks just right, because I remember reporting recently another medium duty EV company, Bollinger Motors, has gone out. And it's kind of like it's a very risky time right now in the EV space, but you all have managed to get that right kind of ingredient list.
I think it's a lot more about doing it in-house than it is about general price trends in batteries. Where the battery prices are today, they're a little lower than the year before. They're a little lower than the year before, but we haven't had like a big shift in battery pricing in the last 3 to 4 years. Well, not the sort of radical shift that was happening through the teens to take us from like the Model S to the Model 3. At this point, I think batteries sort of cost what they cost. And it's a question of building the rest of the system around them in a way that you can afford. And like you said, putting the right amount of batteries in, that's a big part of why we build medium duty vehicles here. We do not build long haul trucks because batteries just hold. The battery technology we have available today isn't going to solve that problem in long haul. So we like the way that this market has that alignment.
It reminds me of the school buses. So I got to see some EV school buses, and I thought to myself, why would you electrify a school bus? But they said, well, for what we need to use it for, we can get a certain amount of battery and we can make it work for the price. And so medium duty, it's got to be like the same way, which is like when you're thinking of a FedEx or a customer placing these orders, how much range are we needing to get out of these trucks? When we're thinking of making these chassis that they're going to put their stuff on top of, what are they looking at in terms of capabilities? Because a lot of the audience is thinking long haul or bust. There's an entire portion of the supply chain that's like, no, this stuff is ready now.
I think the sweet spot in medium duty is about 150 miles for the vehicle. These vehicles are doing these vehicles are doing like 50 to 60 miles a day.
Okay.
So I say 150 because you take 50 or 60 miles a day, double it in case they forget to plug in one night, add some more margin for an unusually hot or cold day. And with a 150 mile range vehicle, we can easily do the full day's route. And for the majority of use cases, we're going to do the next day's route too. It's not necessarily the plan, but I think people really want to be comfortable with electrification, that they've got a lot of margin. As fleets get more operationally capable here, as they're used to operating hundreds or thousands of EVs, then I think the right answer is going to be 100 miles per range. I think it's less range, not more, because we can just build an ever more price effective vehicle that way. At a 100-mile range product, we can sell this for materially less money than a diesel truck.
That's interesting. That kind of answers one of the things, because a lot of the reporting I hear is, well, on other sides of the supply chain, we need more miles, more battery, bigger packs, but then it's heavier. But then on the, within the last mile parcel space, they're like, look, realistically, like you said, we've got a certain radius, certain routes. Mm-hmm. If you can optimize that route, then you can figure out the charge and the battery pack. And then that saves with your weight and it saves with your cost. How big of a pack are these guys for like 100, 150 miles? How big of a pack do I need? Is it even that big of a weight problem compared to like looking at like a Tesla semi or something where you got to stack these things under?
Oh, it's completely different scale. The vehicles in this segment, you can expect to consume about 0.9 kilowatt hours per mile. So if we're talking 100-mile range, that's a 90 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is the same size pack you get in a Model 3.
Really?
So, as far as weight, like, number one, it's not that big of a pack, but number two, we've got to use the right chemistry. At Harbinger, what they're building behind me are NCMA battery systems, nickel, cobalt, manganese, aluminum. We use cells from Panasonic. I think most people would agree they're the best battery cell manufacturer in the world. And one of the reasons we made that choice is we get very high energy density battery systems. We could save a little bit of money with an LFP system, but the result is it starts to carry a huge weight premium over those diesel trucks. There are not enormous margins available to truck operators So if we take 20% of the cargo out of the back of their trucks, we've done them a disservice. Like, the business isn't going to work on the operator side if the vehicles all get 20% heavier. So with the batteries that we build here, combination of the right battery, the right size, the right chemistry, the right drivetrain system, we build vehicles that are not only selling for about the same price as a diesel truck, they have about the same weight as a diesel truck.
That's what I'm kind of thinking about. Is one of the big things is if you have about the same price and the same weight, now we're thinking like second and third order, which one of the big ones is emissions. Lots of talk about NOx emissions, your filter changes, your oil changes. With like a battery, I've got my little wheels and stuff, but I don't have all of this combustion based air intake and other systems. Is that one of the selling points for, like, if I imagine like a FedEx, I'd spend so much money on DEF, diesel, oil, the whole shebang. And then you kind of say you don't have to deal with that anymore. That's got to help with the total cost of ownership equation.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the pitch people have been using in this segment for years, right? Is there's all these savings. We're at TCO parity. I think that's done the industry a disservice, because as soon as you start talking about TCO parity, you're also admitting that you have the wrong price. If the price is the same from day one, all of that stuff, that's money in your pocket on day two. That's savings. That's not a way to have to recover from being underwater on the vehicle. And that's kind of what people have been going for, in the segment from our competitors. Is all those savings are going to dig you out of this price problem. Once you don't have the price problem, those other savings, they're massive. What we're seeing in our customers using the vehicle in parcel applications, something like a 70% fuel savings.
Wow.
The maintenance savings, I think it's hard to quantify today. The maintenance savings, obviously, you don't have an engine. So filters are gone, oil is gone, EGR, all of these systems that sort of blow out when a vehicle's 10 years old, we don't have any of that stuff. Our own analysis suggests you should save around 50% on maintenance. The number might be bigger. The other piece that's interesting there is it's not only that you're saving that money on maintenance, you're saving that time on maintenance. You don't have a vehicle going in to be taken off the route once a month for all these services to be performed. So it's sort of compounding, right? We're not going to spend the money on the maintenance. We're also not going to lose the use of the vehicle. So we're going to have less spare vehicles. Spare vehicles don't need to be maintained. Like, it's a very virtuous cycle in electrification.
I like your point about the anchoring too. From a persuasion standpoint, you don't really think about it till you hear it, but other EV makers, you automatically sell to someone saying you're already in the hole, but this will get you to parity by getting out of the hole. But then you flip that around, do better battery tech, better combination, keep the weight light. You're like, look, we're about the same in cost. You're actually gaining. You're in the green as soon as you sign the dotted line. You're not crawling out of a hole. That's kind of a profound thing if you think about it, because that kind of it just sticks in your brain a little bit.
Well, I think it's why, if you look at how electrification is being adopted in kind of different places in different markets, we finally hit the right price point on EVs and passenger cars. And we've seen huge hockey stick growth in markets where those vehicles are available. Products like the Model 3, but also the Ioniq series from Hyundai. Via an Ioniq, it's about the same price as a 3 Series BMW. It's the same quality, but it's electric. And so we're seeing that curve get really steep. On the commercial vehicle side, that hasn't been done in the US yet, which is why the curve is sort of a flat line. When we look at markets outside the US, where they've actually brought in products at the right price, in China, they're doing 30-40% of commercial vehicle sales this year are electric. Wow. The market penetration is just wild.
The Chinese market always blows my mind because, we report in the North American space, and then you realize that like there's tens of thousands, millions of more vehicles being sold there. And I read somewhere earlier about that saying new cars, 35, 40, even 50% for some commercial and passenger. If you want to see that in the US, what are some of the biggest selling points, at least in the commercial space? Is the challenge, like you said, kind of a persuasion battle, showing them that we're at the same price, or do you think maybe just American companies are kind of hamstrung by infrastructure? What are some of these biggest headwinds in terms of, we've got these orders, we've got some huge customers wanting to place it. What are some of the challenges that you guys are facing as you're looking to get that hockey stick go up?
I mean, there's two things you need. You need to have the right price, but you also need to have a product that is as good or better. And I think that one is really something that's missing as well. And you look at the Chinese EV market, on the passenger car side, they're well above 50% this year on EV sales.
Wow.
Partially that's because they're the right price. The average selling price of a new EV in China is now slightly below the average selling price of a combustion vehicle. But you've got a superior product experience, right? You've got the responsiveness of an EV, you've got less maintenance. On the commercial vehicle side, that superior experience needs to show up in better driver comfort, better safety, and better maneuverability. One of the things that I love doing when we have visitors out here to the factories, we get in one of the Harbinger trucks and we take off down the road outside. And I will make a pretty aggressive U-turn, usually without telling the person why. Always in traffic. And the reason I like to do that is because in a Harbinger truck, we can make a U-turn on a residential street in a medium duty truck.
Really? So is that one of the big things as well? When you're thinking of maneuverability, you've got to almost train the motors too, because it's not like a drivetrain, an axle suspension. You've got it turning.
Oh no, it's not in the motor at all. It's
Really?
not, it's got nothing to do with electrification.
It's just the design of it in terms of making sure the design is correct and putting in the work, because it's sitting on top of the chassis. So you've got to have that perfect mesh, because they're going to be adding the stuff on top.
Well, and, what we've done to accomplish that is he built the entire suspension and steering system from scratch. So it's not around the motors; it's around how much wheel cut do you have, how do you actuate the steering. Like, we use electronically power assisted steering, EPAS. So we don't have a hydraulic boost system on the steering system. So that's a whole nother system that's just gone for maintenance. But we also give it a lot lower workload. We get a faster steering system, so less turns, less hand-over-hand steering maneuvers. But at the end of the day, the real piece is, when we started, we sat down and said, what'll make a difference to drivers? What do drivers really want? And if you think about being out on a delivery route, you miss a house, the consequence is you're going to be 5 minutes going around the block. Right? You're not turning delivery trucks around normally in these residential neighborhoods. So you've just really impacted that driver's day, especially if that guy's an Amazon driver. You're going to be chirping, your packages per hour is too low. So,
oh no,
we really thought about what's going to matter for the drivers here, and being able to do U-turns in smaller space, we thought was a big deal. It didn't come down to electrification. It just came down to caring about what the drivers are going to like, what's going to make a difference in their day.
Reminds me of convo with ZF, and they talk about braking and steering. And one of the things everyone's like, well, you think of the engine, the horsepower, the torque, all this, acceleration. But everyone keeps telling me, no, what matters for drivers is how maneuverable, how does it handle? And then I got behind a dump truck and I'm moving around. My arms are shaking. I'm getting a shoulder workout. It doesn't show, I could use a little more work. But having that kind of creature comfort and having that electric steering, that's almost like a luxury car if you think about it. That kind of quality, you don't really see that in the commercial market.
When you get that in the braking system as well. Like, we developed a hydraulic braking system that we can bring all the way up to 26K GVW. So we don't need air brakes to get up to that limit where most people would. The driver experience of having a hydraulic braking system versus air brakes is way better. But then we brought a ton of additional intelligence into the system. So when you're driving a Harbinger truck, you get in the morning, maybe the truck's empty, you get the truck filled up, you make deliveries, now the truck's back to being mostly empty. Throughout the day, you're going to have very consistent braking performance, even as the weight of that vehicle goes from 10,000 pounds to 20. Because while you're driving around, we're estimating the vehicle weight. We're monitoring the acceleration and the deceleration. So when you push on that pedal, we're going to give you consistent deceleration in the braking system and consistent acceleration in the motor, independent of the weight of the vehicle.
That's interesting, because it's like the dump truck theory. Okay, you're actually helping me learn why when I drove this dump truck, they were like, it's loaded. It's like nearly fully loaded. I'm like, what do you mean? Why am I
So you
driving
get
a loaded
triple
dump?
the stopping distance, right? And you give it to someone that's maybe not an expert, and that's a good way to like plow through 3 stopped cars.
That would be me, unfortunately. I would be like, I didn't know it wasn't loaded enough because they just put springs in these, like suspension in these commercial hauling vehicles, medium duty, heavy duty. Like it does feel like the old 1920s where you see the two big springs and they're just like
Oh
going
yeah.
at it. So like, is that a big, that's like got to be a big jump.
Well, and that one I think is around how do we make the vehicle cheaper with nothing to do with fuel, nothing to do with maintenance, but safety, right? Making a vehicle that stops more consistently, especially for untrained drivers. You have such a driver shortage. That turns into savings, right? You put an untrained driver into these vehicles, the sort of ICE version of these vehicles, you're rolling the dice. And so we want to give our fleet customers vehicles that are much safer to drive, because in the long run, that turns into the biggest savings of all.
So smart braking, smart load adjustment. Is that one of the bigger? And I wanted to circle back to that because I feel like based on how much weight you have, it'll impact, I guess, your stopping ability. So if you don't have that dynamic ability, that can directly lead to safety because maybe you've had a long day and you forget that you're not laden anymore. That's going to impact your stopping characteristics. Or if you just got loaded and going out the depot and got to slam the brakes.
That's right. Or, you go online and sign up to be an Amazon delivery driver today. You're going to be in the truck tomorrow delivering stuff. Like, we've got to have vehicles that are, oh yeah, that's the thing. You can become an Amazon delivery service provider tomorrow if you want. It's like, that's the level of friction.
Or is it just
no.
I can like, so if I wanted to, I could get like a Harbinger, like the lightest medium duty. I just kind of like get one and then you can just get on the road and roll it. Cause I can't remember the way I was.
You can get the heaviest medium duty. There's no CDLs in medium duty.
Oh, I can drive one of these. So you're telling me is I need to come down and drive one of these things?
Oh, for sure. I mean, there are no licensing requirements for a 26,000 pound vehicle in the US. So we aren't building vehicles that professional drivers with decades of experience in the CDL are going to drive. We're building vehicles here that like any random person may jump in and take off in as part of their job. So we have to build a vehicle that's going to be safe for someone without a ton of training.
So comfort, safety, performance, that makes a lot more sense. So on the largest one is that the largest box trucks? We're thinking the ones with the folding doors in terms of the medium duty? Because I try to explain to people the medium duty space. I'm like, well, there's class 4 through 6, but there's also a class 3. What are these size ranges that these customers are kind of targeting right now?
So what we build today are chassis that go into 2 types of vehicles primarily. Delivery, walk-in vans or step vans, and RVs. So you can pick the size of the vehicle. You can pick the size of the vehicle independently of the weight rate. So we can give you a couple different wheelbases, but they can all go from 20,000 pounds to 26,000 pound gross vehicle weight rating. If you look at the Jayco Embark, which is the first RV launched on our platform, it's a big vehicle. It's 34 feet long, I think. And again, we just jump in that and go. So we've got to support a very wide range of vehicles in this segment because that's sort of how medium duty works. It's a segment where there's so much customization, there's so much variation in vehicles. The chassis manufacturer has to be ready for that.
Do you all one of my interesting questions as well, and I don't know if you all deal with it or if it's the upfitters, but you know how in the parcel vans, like UPS was so excited to get like air conditioning inside their units.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of the EVs, I'm assuming with the EVs, you can just get like a battery clutch compressor. I'm assuming once you buy some of these, if you kit it right, it'll be a little bit easier on that because I always imagine my cousin's a UPS driver. And I'm like, how the heck do you deal with all of this? You're in this giant vehicle that's preferred, like half of them don't even have units. When we're talking about those creature comforts, am I able to spec that out as well if I want to get like the super duper AC clutch compressor?
Well, we put that on everything. Just like it's 2025, right? Not 1970. So we put all the right air system spray air conditioning on all the vehicles. There's another choice to be made on the upfit side to get the equipment that matches up with that. But in general, there's no reason people should be building vehicles without AC in 2025. Uh, you asked that you sort of mentioned like, oh, the special compressor, it's electric, we can do different things. We actually do something very different in that area. We use a multi-zone heat pump. So the whole way we implement the cooling system is really different. It makes a big difference on efficiency. On the cooling side, the effect is just that we have a massive amount of coolant. So on a Harbinger vehicle, we have 65,000 BTUs of cooling capacity. That's double what you get in a refrigerated box truck. It's probably more than you get in a typical house. And we do that because we use the same system: cool the cabin, cool the batteries during fast charging, cool the motor. So we've got this flexible system where we can move that cooling capacity back and forth. The bigger impact is on the heating side. When you're in a Harbinger truck, kick on the heat. We're not just taking the battery and dumping that energy into a resistive heater. We're actually using that heat pump to collect waste heat from the dry unit and heat the cabin, just like you would in a diesel truck. And in the right temperature range, we're even scavenging waste heat from the outside. So if it's, 45 degrees ambient, cool but not freezing, we can actually run the system backwards. We'll collect heat through the radiators and heat the cabin window, just like a heat pump on your house.
That's remarkable. Those little things. That's the more I'm talking with OEMs. That's kind of like your average person doesn't think about what are some of the smaller ways that you can do for these creature comforts. And while we got a little bit of time left before we wrap things up, looking ahead, you've guys 160 million Series C, got these huge orders. What's kind of next? What can you share as we're going into 2026? Because you guys are cooking up and exciting times.
You're going to see some pretty exciting new product launches from us next year. I'm not going to share what those are today, but what we build here can be used in a lot of different ways. In different vehicles, different applications. I mean, we're building about 1 megawatt hour of battery packs a day behind me. There's a lot of interesting things to do with those other than delivery trucks.
So definitely stay tuned. Folks want to learn more, John? Appreciate your time. Love the background as well. I think you get the award for the first Truck Tech episode on an actual floor. So we will put that in. Isaiah, we can throw the graphics in there. Well, maybe we can afford some confetti. The economy's rough right now. Maybe like 2 confettis. But folks want to learn more about Harbinger. What's the best way and to keep in touch?
HarbingerMotors.com or any of our social channels.
Beautiful. John, we'll definitely catch up again soon. Want to keep hearing what you guys are up to. And definitely thanks again for your time.
No problem. Great to be here, Thomas.
That's going to be a wrap for this episode. But if you're just joining us, we're on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, wherever you get your podcast needs. While you're at it, sign up for the Truck Tech newsletter. It goes out every Friday. That's a wrap for this episode. Check out the folks at Harbinger. I'm Thomas Wasson. I'll see you again soon.